Welcome to my channel. Hi everybody. So you haven't been around all day, but don't worry, you haven't missed anything. I just stuck around here and did absolutely nothing but talk to you and research the case I'm working on now. And I wanted to stop here and apologize just in case I've offended anybody with my overprotectiveness, my overprotection of these victims. And if I offended anybody by wanting to give them a voice and actually thinking that they do deserve a voice, they do deserve to be heard, and if that offended you, I'm really sorry. I apologize for that. But if you continue to come to my channel and demean my comments, my content, my subscribers' comments, and make a mockery out of yourself, you leave me no alternative but to ban your other channel from coming to mine, and I will definitely be reporting you to the Asian authorities abroad if you don't leave me alone. And furthermore, if you continue to come to my channel to seek out children from other channels who are subscribed or visiting me, you leave me no other alternative but to share your channel publicly and explain the situation. I don't want you coming to my channel to look for children, because if you're doing what you're doing to them that you're doing to me, you are indeed a criminal. Don't do that. I can stick up for myself, but children, more or less, they can't. And I don't want children here to think that maybe this is the way normal, happy adults who are well-adjusted behave. No, they don't behave like you. I want you to leave the children alone. I want you to stop stalking them. I want you to stop stalking me. Stop looking for my comments on my subscribers' channels. If you continue to do that, you're going to get banned from YouTube. Because I'm obviously not the only person who has this problem with you. I am truly sorry that my content offends you. But your ridiculous, childish, continuous nonsense caused me to ban you. I like your channel. I loved your content, but I hate what you do. So therefore, you cannot come back here. And if you continue to create other content, other channels, and then use those channels to continue to stalk me, I will also report those channels. So it's up to you. You want to grow up and get help, maybe? Or do you want to leave me alone? So guys, nothing much has been really actually going on today. I've just been sort of really buckling down and doing some research on this case because it appears that more and more tidbits are coming out of the woodwork, but they really don't change the essential timeline of the case or its actual details. So I'm going to continue with the arrest of Mr. Adamstrong in 2018. And so it was at the point where they found certain bits and pieces of those young ladies as remains in the freezer and in the bedroom apartment of Mr. Strong. And so that came after a meticulous search with the warrant that the police had to investigate the entire premises. And so, hats off to that Durham Regional Police Department who didn't bungle up or fudge things or take their time like other departments have in the past. But I really like their approach. And of course, they were led to that scene by other circumstances. So what an amazing miracle. And really, it caused Kandis Fitzpatrick to finally go home to her family in the conditions that she was left in by this monster. I'm going to try to keep my control in check here. And I just don't understand the mindset. As I explained with Calvin Hoover, what caused him to do that? But we can't look at it through the perspective of our own eyes. You know what I'm saying? Because we are not that person, thankfully. We are not that person. We are someone else. And so we are not going to ever have to be put in a position where we need to answer for what these incredibly horrific people did to these innocent. Yes, they were innocent. And my cat's playing under my chair. They were innocent. They were unsuspecting. They were ready to start their lives. And maybe they weren't the happiest at that time, but it was all part of life. Excuse me. What are you doing? Every time my back is turned, she gets at the plants, but unfortunately she can't reach them anymore because Mommy made sure that she couldn't. Anyway, more than a week after they found the initial plumbing situation and what was going on in there, the police announced that a post-mortem had indeed identified the remains as those of rorihache. And so then Adam Strong was convicted in March of that year, 2018, of first-degree murder in the death of rorihache, and of manslaughter in the death of Kandis Fitzpatrick. So, there you have it. He was caught. And not only was he caught, but he, made as though it was a big, spectacular game in which he had, lost a hand. As if a hand of poker or a hand of cards of some other game. I don't understand the mindset. Well, during the trial, the prosecution put forth a similar fact application, an approach for, women, for the two women, in an effort to show the court that Fitzpatrick died in the same way and by the same hands of Adam Strong. And so now you understand why these two women who never knew each other and had died years apart from one another, what drew them together? The common man who ended their lives, Adam Strong. And so during the trial, Strong did acknowledge that the Crown proved that he did what he did to these women, but stupidly, he argued, even though the remains were everywhere in his apartment, he argued that they failed to prove that he was the culprit. So they just wandered in and fell apart in his freezer, right? Adam, that kind of logic is not going to get you anywhere. I'm sorry, but that's how it rolls. And so Dion, Rori's mother, said in her statement, her impact statement, when they found the remains of Kandis Fitzpatrick, she said, "This is when I knew that this nightmare, I was never going to wake from it." And, also, data from Google itself showed that Strong's mobile phone at the harbor pinged a week earlier from that spot where Rori's remains were found, some of them at least. And so that is what the jury heard. And so Rori's mother, Shannon Dion, had tested positive for COVID-19. And so she didn't attend that trial or that event at that time. It was a video conference that she delivered these details of her feelings and emotions. And, she was the one who went through their extensive search for her daughter when they realized her daughter was missing. So now, guys, I understand that many young girls do run away, but they weren't the typical runaway girls. They were still close to their family. They still had contact with their family. And both girls resided or frequented that eastern part of the city in Oshawa. And so Oshawa is a city to the east of my city, I should say. I can never get that right. So that is where they hung out. That is where they resided. That is where they lived, so to speak. And so Bill Fitzpatrick, Kandis's dad, told the court in a victim impact statement that he absolutely scoured the Oshawa streets and other cities as well after his daughter suddenly vanished in March of 2008. And so I remember, guys, that was the year that I returned to university, right after my separation became finalized. And so Bill Fitzpatrick told the court in a victim impact statement that he looked for her high and low. And he said he was devastated, absolutely devastated, when the police told him nearly 10 years later that they found her DNA in Strong's home and believed that she was dead. So after all that time of hoping and wishing and waiting and searching, he was blown away. He was shattered. And this is probably what the McCanns would go through if they ever find that their own missing daughter, Madeline McCann, turned up as passed away. And so, I have such a feeling, guys, that she's not around anymore either. So, after all those years of searching, he said that it was not the outcome that he expected. So obviously, guys, he may have thought, well, she just, had it with life here and maybe decided to pack up and leave for good, go somewhere else. Maybe she started another life fresh. Maybe that's what he was, even though it must have hurt her parents to go down that chain of thought. It must have devastated them either way. You know what I'm saying? Either she's gone by choice or she's not around anymore. And so it wasn't much of a happy outcome either way. Obviously not. Very tragic indeed. And so, you know, I can imagine being a parent and waiting and wishing and hoping and thinking and searching all that time and building up all that false hope, and then she's gone. You actually have that proof that she's gone. This is death. She's gone. And so the only way that she ever came home was in her remains and DNA. She never did make it home in one piece. And that is literal. And so it's a horrific case, guys. It astounds me that this was the year that broke all records for crime. Horrifying situations going on all over the city. And everybody's so nonchalant about it. Still, the Sherman murders remain to this day unsolved, so to speak. I would have no idea who these people that took their lives, who they were. And so we have to thank our lucky stars that we caught this person, because he was probably so unsuspecting and, you know, coy and sly, you know, like Calvin, that nobody would have found him at all a threat. And yet, look what he did. He hid it well. But I think the way that the plumbing situation turned up, I have a feeling that that was someone else, probably, that maybe found something, and then, I don't know. It almost seemed as though someone was out to attack him, because how could it turn up in pipes? Now, if that wasn't somebody else calling attention to the fact that he did that, it was Adam himself. He needed help. He needed help, and he still does, I'm sure. If not to reconcile himself with the fact that he will spend the rest of his life behind bars, but how he can live with himself, with the idea of what he did. How does a person do it? That's horrific. And so I'm going to show you the images of the image of Strong holding this long black blade. He must have thought he was so cool. Well, I think he's sick. I don't think that's cool. I think that's sick. You know, maybe if you were in the Middle Ages, yeah, living in a forest, maybe. But I think you're sick. People like that need help, guys. You know, I don't care how horrible a past you've had. You know right from wrong. Laws exist for a reason. You don't ignore them. So I don't know where all this came from. As for Rori's family, the idea that anyone would hurt her was absolutely baffling, and I'm sure that is what led her naivety. That is what led her to her ultimate encounter with this, I don't want to call him a man because that's not what he is, this being. So she was the person at school who would stick up for bullied children, for bullied classmates, according to descriptions at the memorial that was given to her when her parts were found in Lake Ontario. She was so furiously dedicated to animals. She was highly intelligent, and she aspired to be a veterinarian. And I think that is wonderful. I think she would have truly become an amazing adult and had she been given the chance. And she would have been a wonderful role model for her unborn child, who would have eventually been born if she had been left alone. And so, it's so sad, guys. A beautiful, vibrant life snuffed out to please a nutcase. And I'm sorry, that's what I see him as. That picture shows him for what he really was. I hope that he's received some help. And I know that problems do lead people to do this. If you don't take care of those problems, this is what it results in. Thank goodness that he's behind bars. That's all I can say. And so her own grandmother wrote that she still went after stray kittens as a salute to her victimized granddaughter. So animals were that bond between her and the rest of the world. And it makes me want to cry, you know what I mean? It really does. So Rori's uncle, excuse me, had never met or heard of Adam Strong. And I can imagine, and I'll tell you in a second, why Rori's uncle was pretty much cross-examined by police. It's because he was a member of the notorious gang Hell's Angels. That is quite prominent in my province. And so he said the guy was a complete stranger, and nobody in the gang or club, whatever you want to call it, nobody knew him. And so police needed to be quite sure about that, because they had demolished the Hells Angels clubhouse in 2010, 7 or 8 years before this all came about. That would be 2 years after the disappearance of Kandis. And so in those days, I know that they were getting a lot, this gang was getting a lot of flack with the police. They were involved in crime. And, I don't want to get into that because it didn't concern children. And so I'm going to stay out of it. And so Rori's uncle did assure him, the police, that they'd never heard of him. He wasn't part of their establishment. And so police would not comment on whether or not Rori and Strong were friends and pals. Well, guys, I've thought of that too. And I would say this. I would say, judging by both girls' characters and their beauty and their intelligence, I would say it's a pretty unlikely match. Don't you think? If there was anything going on other than friendship, it would have been business and not companionship. In the platonic sense, in the romantic sense, it would have been business. And what that business is, I'm going to leave it up to your imaginations. I already explained, the critical situation of the area of Oshawa. And I already explained the addictions of these two young girls and what led them probably to meet up with this unsavory character, Adam Strong. And so I don't know, so I can't really say much else than that. So, but Rori's uncle, who is a member of the Hells Angel in Oshawa, said that he was concerned for them, his group, because of the speculation of his affiliation with Hell's Angels and whether or not it might have anything to do with his beloved niece's death. And I believe that. I truly believe that. Not because it sounds corny. I think it's true. I think in most family situations, people will vie to protect their loved ones, no matter what difficulties or issues you might have had. I think he's on the up and up here. And there was no evidence anywhere to suggest that Rori's disappearance or death was connected at all with Hell's Angels. And guys, let me tell you, I'm sure that was thoroughly investigated, because I don't know how many of those members were arrested in those mentioned years. So many of them. And before that too, prior to that and after that. But, you know, the point of the whole thing is that there were rules that could not be broken. And those rules were actually two: no women and no kids. So Rori would have, qualified for both categories. She was a kid and she was a female. So, yes, she was barely 18, guys. And so she was just a child herself. There's no way that they would have been involved in something like that. I can't speak for other cases. I'm just speaking for this because I don't know them. But yes, I think that they're truly amazing, and I commend their cooperation with the police in this case. And I think that that's how we have to clear ourselves sometimes, by sticking up for our rights and, claim your innocence. Don't get shy and put your head in the sand. Claim your innocence and defend yourself. Because if you don't, nobody else will. And so in 2022, during the lockdown, actually the tail end of the lockdown maybe, Durham Regional Police investigators recovered the remains of the remains that had not been recovered before of Kandis Fitzpatrick, the teen who was killed by Adamstrong in 2008, over a decade before the arrest of Adamstrong. Fitzpatrick was found after he told prison staff where her remains were. Now, guys, this is what I'm saying. He was so hoping that playing dumb about, oh, how did that get there? How did this get there? Oh, I didn't do it. It didn't help him. He was truly delusional. And so I guess something got to him and he told the staff where her remains were. Well, why didn't he do that in court? Monster that he behaved like. Not only did he do that to those poor girls, he continued to be like that in court. What's the matter with you, Adam? Oh my God. So, in 2018, police, it wasn't until 2018, after 10 years went by, that police were finally able to link Kandis to Strong because of that DNA in the freezer and on the blade. So Strong is currently imprisoned for first-degree murder of Rori, and when he killed her in 2017, and manslaughter in connection with Kandis in 2008. So the charges for both cases were not the same. And so the families of the victims attended a news conference in 2022 when the discovery was announced. So today, Kandis comes home. That's what Rori's mother said at the conference. And indeed, it brought the families together, hopefully. They must have shared so many emotions. And in one of the articles that I link below, I love it. Bill Fitzpatrick bursts out in court and uses profanity. And I'm not laughing at the case. I'm laughing at the fact that when I read articles like that, I realize how badly we need strong individuals like that to come forth and stand up for what you believe in. Yeah, even if you have to use profanity, I'm sure that everybody agreed with his sentiments completely, and so do I. So Strong, in the end, after revealing to the staff of the prison where he was incarcerated exactly where the remains were, he accompanied the investigators to a location. Well, he got out. You know, he was out for a day. I'm sure he enjoyed that. But the rest of it is awful. And guys, I know where this area typically is. I haven't been to this exact intersection, but I know it's very far out, very far out. And I maybe will show you. I'm not going to promise you. Maybe I'll show you. It's an area in the east of Oshawa, and it's Secreto Drive and one other road. I'm not going to say the road because I don't want people going there. You know what I mean? It's probably not safe there. So it is very likely. I haven't been that far up this street. Let me tell you, this is way out of town for me. I haven't been that far up this street, but I can tell you from what I remember of my recent visits to that area, it's quite beautiful. It's upscale. And there's a lot of bush around there. So I'm sure that she was indeed put there and they found her. And so he went pointing to an area where he believed he buried her remains in 2008. Now, why? I don't understand why it was such a secret. Was it because he didn't want evidence of what he did to her found? Yes, I think so. I think he didn't want them to realize how badly he abused her and tortured her. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure. I'm sure that she did abuse her, but I'm not sure exactly what his motive for not telling them was. I guess he needed to wait a certain amount of years for decomposition to set in. You see how evil, evil, evil. And no, confession here, I don't care. I don't think anybody could ever trust you. I really don't. You know what I'm saying? It's too late. It's too late for you. It's too late. In my books, I would be terrified to say, lay eyes on you for fear of what you might do. Anyway, the police confirmed that the remains were those of Fitzpatrick because they were analyzed. And so this new discovery and details did not change anything about the outcome of the tragedy or the trauma endured by the victims, their families, and their friends, or the life sentence of Adamstrong. And so the findings did provide closure for Kandis's family and all those who were affected by the crime committed against her, or crimes committed against her by Strong. Adamstrong is serving a concurrent sentence of life in prison with no chance at parole for 25 years for Rori's murder and 18 for Fitzpatrick's manslaughter. And so there you have it, guys. That is the entire case. And I've probably left details out because I didn't list all the articles and I didn't go through every one of them. But I tried to include as many images in the movie that's coming after this. And I tried to give you a good sense of what the case was actually all about. And, you know, how intense and sad and dramatic it must have been for the jury and the families involved, you know, people who loved those girls. They were popular, I'm sure. They were well loved by their families, guys. I don't want anybody to get the idea that they were misfits. They weren't. The only misfit here was, you know who, the person who committed the crimes against these beautiful women. And so, thank you very much for listening and putting up with my little mini rant in the beginning. I mean it, guys. If this person continues to come looking for me and looking for my contact, it's like a true pervert himself. You know what I'm saying? I have to do something about him. I don't know what to do. I've made an enemy with just, you know, sticking to my content. And I don't like people who do that. I don't like it. I think that groups on YouTube have a right to mill together and subscribe to each other if that is what they're into. I cannot. Because of things that happened to me when I was a young child, I'm not going to advocate for a child abuser. Ta-ta! Thank you very much for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.